you connected with JP? Have you introduced you know each other, or should I just introduce you?
Shaukat, I think we are live.
Oh, okay.
So you like
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Azhar Nawaz. I am CIO of Angro Corporation. Today, we are here. We got together to have a discussion on a very interesting topic. AI has been in our conversations for years, especially in the technology circles. However, with the launch of ChatGPT, the discussion has accelerated and has also gone into wider community. Right? So, as AI continues to transform industries and shape our daily lives, it is critical that we consider its impact on our society as a whole. So, in our session today, we are exploring the ways in which AI can be used to create positive social impact, as well as the potential risks and challenges that it brings to us. Right. So, for the purpose, CXO Global has helped us, and we have a star studded panel today with us. It's my pleasure to introduce the panel members here. I'll start with John. John Pierre Offred is the Director Research Partnership of George Mason University and is also President of International Academy of CIO. We have Anatoly Motkin with us, who is founder and president of Strategist. We have Shaukat Ali Khan, who is global CIO of Aga Khan. And we also have Taruni with us, who is leading Amazon in the emerging markets of Asia. So, as I introduced, the topic of today is the social impact of AI. I'd like to start with Anatoly. Anatoly, in your opinion, what are some of the most significant social impacts that AI has had so far? One which comes to my mind is the invent of Google and the search engines. That has great impact on technology industry and wider lives. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts around this?
Thank you for the opportunities and thank you for inviting me. I think the main outcome will be transformation of workforce, transformation of the global workforce. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes. Please
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. First, some of the coders, some of the people who prepare the press releases, and many others actually will lose or at least transform their job. I think the most important thing that actually the AI brought to our life is English became a programming language. Like instead of C++, Pascal, whatever, Visual Basic, we have English. And today, if you instruct correctly and if you know how to use your language, anyone becomes a programmer or coder without even studying.
Thank you for that. Uh, looking at the interesting perspective which you have brought in, that AI has brought English into programming language. My next question would be towards JP. As you are working in a university, there's a lot of discussion around how AI is impacting, and especially Chat GPT is impacting on education systems, from assisting teachers and helping students in terms of creating content and assignment. There's a lot of discussion around that. So, what is your take on that, JP?
Well, as Natalie mentioned, I think it has a very large potential impact. There's an impact as to the question of what is education and how do you continue to teach structured thinking and structured decision making as part of your curriculum. Um, there's the potential for teachers to use it for developing syllabuses and developing assignments, but there's also going to be vast changes in the way some subjects are taught. As Natalie mentioned, one of those is programming. Um, so potentially, students will no longer start with a fresh sheet of paper developing code. They may well be given code by ChatGPT or something similar, and the learning will be to troubleshoot that and to get it to work in their own environment. Similarly, for essay writing, um, students should know how to write proper and write well essays, but again, these type of systems can provide a starting point. I think overall for society, it's there are alternative paths. So is the path something like a calculator where it augments what we're able to do, or is it something more that replaces things that we're doing?
So it's a very interesting point which you mentioned is about around augmenting the human intelligence, right? So what is your view, JP, on there's a lot of discussion around how Chat GPT and AI should not be available to students and should not be used in education. So what is your view on that?
I think it depends on the age. I think similarly with calculators, I think at a very young age that the students should learn the basics, for example, of adding and subtracting and multiplication and the basics of doing formulas. But as they get older, these are tools that they'll be using in the workplace. And so I think becoming familiar with the tools and knowing how the tools can augment their own thinking is integral for someone to be moving into society, into the workforce.
Yeah, you cannot ban tools. I mean, when the calculator was invented, there was a lot of discussion around how it will take away thinking from people and should not be used. Similarly, there are discussions how Chat GPT will take away a lot of thinking from people. My next question, I'll come to Shaukat. While we are developing AI, so there are a lot of biases which can be significant challenge to AI development. So, what are your thoughts around how can we ensure that AI is developed in a way which is inclusive and equitable for all people?
Thank you, Azhar. Thank you to CXO for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure to actually sharing this panel together with others. I think it's an interesting question. Before coming into this point, I just want to have a comment on the previous one. Remember, there are three big revolutions, I can say. One was the WWW. When this came, of course, people were afraid about the information available over the internet. The second one, when it actually enhanced to Google, where you can search everything from the
Yeah.
internet. And then this is the third one, where the wisdom is actually attached with the information. So I think the important part is that um, instead of just criticizing on the technology, on the revolutions, I think the important part is to leverage the usage of this, get the benefit of this, and prepare ourselves and our industries, our academia, on how to best utilize all these great revolutions. So just coming on to your question on biases, of course, this is an important question because this is a new system, and then how we can do that. So couple of my humble submissions is that it all depends on then what type of AI developers are involved. So AI development team should be diverse, including people from different backgrounds, cultures, genders, and races. This will help to ensure that different perspectives are considered in the development process. Also, the data, the algorithms to collect the different data. It's also very important that how these tools are trained. Therefore, it's important to collect data from diverse sources to make sure that the different type of data is available, and it's a representative of the population across. Another important part is the transparency point of view, that the AI developers should be transparent about the data and algorithms, and also they should be transparent about how they are addressing the biases that may exist on this one. And then another important part is the testing of the entire part, right? The AI should be rigorously testing before actually deploying, and to ensure that the fairness is there, to ensure that if there is any issues with regards to biases, with regards to any other similar type of issues, then they are addressed. And especially this will help to identify and address any issues before they impact people. I would also want to add the ethical part of it, ethical guidelines. So it should be developed to follow ethical guidelines that prioritize fairness, transparency, and accountability. These guidelines should be developed in consultation with diverse stakeholders and including communities that may be impacted by AI systems. Because remember, this is a big revolution. So a lot of different things are actually important to be considered. And in summary, ensuring that AI is developed in a way that is inclusive and equitable for all people requires a multifaceted approach that includes diverse teams, representative data, transparency, testing, ethical guidelines, and then many other aspects of because this is going to learn right over the period. So it's important that we have the right framework, right mindset to adopt that and then improve based on that one.
Thank you, Shaukat. Very, very comprehensive answer. So data is important, and the aspects which you have highlighted. Of course, the social impact of this type of revolution is great, which is why we got together and we thought, rather than discussing what AI is and what are the potential usage, let's discuss the social impact of it. And you also very rightly mentioned diversity and inclusion. So on our panel today, we have one diversity representative as well. Not that Tony, you are here because of diversity, because you are established in your area. So I'll come to you with the question uh, around diversity and inclusion. So how can in your view, how can AI be used to promote diversity and inclusion rather than reinforce existing biases and inequalities?
So Azhar, I'll probably go a little personal and talk about my own journey because the diversity force of good that tech brings, AI, ML brings, is something that I've seen. I'm not a technical person. I'm not a techie at all. I'm not a geek. C++. These are words that just pass by my head. But one of the big things that happened with me in the technology space is because it's something that changes so fast. Folks like me who really never had an education or did an engineering qualification can enter the workforce that is very tech heavy because the technology is new, because you're starting at a really short burst of 6 months or 7 months, and then you can pick up the journey there. So we are seeing that melting pot of workforce happen where you're finding people who are not just an engineer, but people from, say, hospitality, people who've served in the veterans coming back to the workforce. And that's really one of the greatest things that I think the tech world promotes, which is access to jobs, even though you've not learned it as a skill. Diversity to me is many things. It's not just gender, it's race, it's your qualifications, it's your age, it's the kind of family background you've come from, the comfort you have in a language. And I think what AIML does is really give us the power to take away bias. When I hire, for example, I look for a mini me. I look for someone who thinks like me. I have this assumption that a certain university is better, so I will only hire from there. But when I am leveraging that, and I like the point that JP said, the augmentation effect that AIML brings in, where my decision is calibrated by data, and as long as it's ethically done and the algorithm works well, you've then found a very powerful way to take that bias out. But the part that I like the best, and talking about social good, is when AI ML also gives you a path or a solution to bring diversity in. I'll give you an example here as well. I was in New York over Christmas, and one of the things that I noticed in JFK when I ordered my coffee was the entire process is automated. You've got an iPad, you lock in your beverage of choice, it comes to you. And I'm old school, I kind of miss having someone walk up to me and ask me whether I want a flat white or a cappuccino. So I did a little bit of research about, hospitality and F&B is changing with automation and machine learning. And I came across this example in Japan where the same type of service is delivered by human beings who are operating those iPads and picking up your orders with special needs. These are people who are paralyzed. These are people who perhaps couldn't speak to you because they haven't been taught in a certain way. But it really brought in this ability for people who could otherwise never get that job because they're facilitated by machine learning to be able to enter the workforce.
Yeah, Taruni, thank you. Great examples. And diversity is not only gender diversity, that, and it's all sorts of backgrounds, different, education institutions, different cultures, uh, different abilities. So all of that is
Yeah.
you count that towards diversity. Uh, Coming back to Anatoly, um I want to bring you towards uh, how we can ensure that the benefits of AI are shared fairly across society. So Shaukat mentioned about ethical use of AI, and how you can make data inclusive, how you can uh, train your algorithms that they are inclusive. So how can we ensure that the benefits are shared across society fairly, rather than concentrating wealth and power into the hands of few?
Thank you for this question. So I think that the importance of AI, digital literacy in general, not only about the AI. So, and I think that's the ABC. I think that also the AI allows the people to get ability to promote themselves or promote their business or to develop their business by having AI instead of employees whom they were unable to hire because they didn't have sufficient funds. Just imagine that somebody creates clay pots, and today, thanks to AI, is able to disseminate a press release, right, and to use the social networks and to create text that he was unable to do beforehand. So I think that inclusivity in AI is also ability of people who doesn't have enough sufficient funds to hire employees to use AI instead of those employees. And how would we make it inclusive? I think it's also not only governments, but also companies like AWS, but also Google and Oracle and others should take on themselves also to develop different programs together with USAID, together with other development agencies, to promote the digital literacy and the AI literacy among those who are able to use it. And again, I think one of the most important languages today is English as a programming language. So also English proficiency is also important for the inclusivity.
Thank you, Anatoly. To our viewers, where there was a little disturbance in the voice, I think Anatoly is on the train and traveling, which is why there was little disturbance. So Anatoly mentioned around how if you don't have funds to hire people, you can use AI. So that leads me towards my next question, which I want to pose to JP. There are many people who are worried that AI will replace human jobs. So, how can we address this potential impact of AI on employment and ensure that the benefits it brings to the society as a whole? You mentioned before that AI adds to human intelligence, rather than taking away from it. So, how do you think that we can bring this topic to forth and tell people that okay, it's not going to replace your jobs? Or what are your thoughts around it? JP, you're on mute.
Sorry, I think there's a societal question as to how quickly the impact might come about. If it's very quick over the next year or two, I think there'll be quite large job dislocations in some types of jobs, and in some countries. Asian Development Bank did a wonderful report 3 years ago or so on the impact of AI and robotics in developing countries in Asia. So it's before these types of ChatGPT systems. But what I think was especially wonderful about the report is they took a range of different types of jobs and looked at the impact on different aspects of the jobs. So not the job overall, but different elements of the job. And they also differentiated by country and economics. And so some of the conclusions were it may well be the same type of job in different countries, but due to economics, the impact would be different. And so I think there's a country by country view and a country by country context that ends up being really quite important. One last aspect: that countries differ quite greatly based upon aging society. So some countries, such as Japan, are quite aged, and China aging, for example, and robotics and AI are really important to maintain productivity. There are other countries that are really have quite young populations, such as India, and so there the impact is much greater or much different, because there's this question not about maintaining productivity but how to employ the young.
So, uh, what is your view? Will AI be taking away jobs, or will the nature of job changes? And how do you view that? And will what is your message to the audience today? Will should they be worried that if the AI is coming into industry on different facets for their jobs?
Well, it'll replace some jobs or large um, aspects of jobs. I think this will be a little bit different because it'll be um, different types of jobs, such as accounting and copywriting, that'll be impacted. And I think with all of these types of major industrial shifts, there may well be similar number of jobs, and there may well be jobs that are further up the value chain. But for the individual that loses their job, I think it could be it will and could be very difficult.
So really, the jobs where you require critical thinking, those are the jobs where we should be focusing towards and using really AI to augment the human intelligence. I'm moving to my next question, which I am going to pose to Shaukat Ali Khan. Uh, Shaukat, let's look at some of the positive examples of AI. As you work for Aga Khan, so what are some of the examples of AI facilitating in the healthcare industry, from diagnosing disease to writing prescriptions and giving a remedy to them?
Yeah. A very interesting question. And a couple of years ago, actually, we were discussing about what is AI and then how we are going to use and this and that, right? Now we are discussing what is the application of AI on each individuals, actually, institutions and other than institutions, on individuals, what AI can do for you and me. Because as you rightly mentioned, I work for the Al Khan University and the hospital system, and we have our academic part, and then we have our hospitals across the world. So I will just give you a couple of examples that AI can analyze medical images such as X-rays, CT scans, MRI scans to help doctors identify and diagnose actually more accurately and quickly. For example, AI-powered software can detect easily early signs of lung cancer in CT scan, helping doctors diagnose the disease at an earlier stage. Another example could be that it can analyze a patient's medical history, genetic detail, and other health data to create personalized treatment plans. For example, it can help doctors determine the most effective chemotherapy plan for a patient with cancer based on the genetic profile. At Al Khan University, we are at the moment we are deploying electronic health record across our hospitals. We have completed in East Africa, and then now we are going towards Pakistan. Through electronic health record, for example, one of the expectations is that we will be able to, through the data, patient data, we will be able to detect that just as a pre just on time, we can detect that based on the information available in electronic health record, if the patient is going towards certain type of disease, to protect that from happening. For example, it can also help doctors and pharmacists manage medication plans for patients. For example, the AI powered chatbots can remind patients to take their medication and alert doctors and pharmacists if a patient misses a dose. So there are so many applications, and through the electronic health record, as I mentioned, we can actually protect a lot of patients by alerting them that the way the information shows that they may get this chronic disease, and how to protect, how to ensure that they can actually uh, change their entire food plan or diet plan or their exercise and all those things, how they can protect in going in that direction. So I think by using AI, it can give us a lot of benefits. It can also help us in large amounts of health data to predict with patients, for example, at risk of developing certain diseases. For example, I can analyze and it can stop those things. So I think it depends on where we want to use. There are so many applications of AI, whether it's in university, whether it's in healthcare. I will just give you a personal example, like Taruni just gave, that I am in Dar es Salaam at the moment. In a couple of days, I'm going to travel to Copenhagen. I booked my car so that I can, when I arrive at the airport, I can collect my car and then drive home. And somehow I have to change the date of that car. So I contacted the company, and then then I start talking to an AI tool from the company. Oh, they gave me the option. The AI gave me the option of canceling my current one and then rebooking the entire new one based on my actually. Based on my desired timelines and date. And this is just one example that now the companies, small companies, big companies, they have started implementing those things towards facilitating their customers, towards facilitating their stakeholders. And in healthcare, we are in the same boat. We are exploring new ways. We are already using some of those applications, but we are expanding and exploring way more in the futures to come on how to leverage on these things.
Thank you. I'm aware of some of the great work which Aga Khan is doing around AI, and AI can really, uh, have big impact in healthcare in countries like Pakistan and India and the region. Um, Taruni, I have a question to you around how AI is changing the future of works, and what are the impacts of AI on the future of work, and how can we prepare ourselves for that. Also, the question which JP was addressing around the job needs and the and how the jobs are changing, and how there will be some jobs lost. I just want you to focus on our region
Yeah.
and take that question.
So, Azhar, I'll probably answer the preparing for the change part of the question first, because I think that's what everyone's nervous and worried about. Am I going to be relevant as somebody who's part of the workforce? And I'll maybe take an example of something that we do at AWS when we're hiring people. We have an intensive hiring, surprisingly, not on technical skills. But on whether your personality and your culture really fits the DNA of us as a company. And there are different leadership principles that we validate our people on. But my personal favorite is learn and curiosity. So, learn and be curious to us is a survival skill. It's not a nice to have. Maybe that's to do with who we are as a company. About a decade ago, we launched 80 new services. Today, that's 3,000. So the ability to be uncomfortable with not knowing what is new technology, or opposite, the comfort with I will learn every single day. As part of my day job, I need to sharpen my saw, I need to pick up new skills. I think that's not going to be something that companies will uniquely search for. I think it is something that will become hygiene. So, to anyone who's worried, who's wondering whether the job is relevant or not, my advice would be get comfortable with learning, learn the tech, learn the new skills. Your relevance is a multiplier of your time that you spend in learning new skills. Jobs are definitely going to change, skills are going to change, the way we do our jobs going to change. My own role, I am a country manager. One of the biggest things I need to report on is top line. And the way I'm reporting that over the last few years has drastically changed. Now, I have the privilege of working for a tech company, so I can use, machine learning tools like forecasting, which kind of gives me a forecast of what my year is going to look like. A few years ago, it was obsessive spreadsheets. So I definitely have seen the benefits of machine learning doing something which makes my time more efficient. Instead of me spending a weekend crunching numbers, I can now think of, what do I do with an Azhar to make sure that he starts to work with us more. So there will be an elevation of what work products come out and how much time you spend within those work products. My message really to everyone, like I said, is learning non-negotiable. Make that part of your day job.
So the second part was, what do you think around the impact on jobs in our part of the region, especially when we have a lot of young population, young and upcoming population. I think
I
that
think there is a benefit. A large part of our region are also outsourcing hubs. If you look at Pakistan, if you look at India, Vietnam, the Indonesia kind of young population, these are developers. They've suddenly got access to very powerful tools and services, and education is accessible. The number of developers I've met who learn off YouTube is phenomenal. So I think what's definitely going to help is education will become a path for people to move away from whatever is the economic background they belong to and have access to jobs not only within the country but also outside the country.
So you mentioned about some of the values at AWS and curiosity, and one of the value which I'm really interested in at AWS is innovation. And you said there are 3,000 new services which AWS has created. So can you talk a little bit for our audience around what is the this innovation value at AWS?
So the innovation DNA, the innovation value, the innovation work focus that we have as a company comes very strongly from a leadership principle that's our topmost one, which is obsession for our customers. So we believe as a technology company like ourselves, it is really our responsibility to firstly listen to what customers are saying to us. So a lot of our services, almost 80%, are derived from feedback that we've got from customers. The second is where we subtly read messages where maybe a customer isn't directly telling us, this is something that we want from you, but we see need that is not really translated into actual words. So serverless, for example, right? If you spoke to a CIO and you told him, no server is the best server, they would be shocked. We're like, how do I run a data center without servers? So no one told us launch serverless, but it was something that we realized that as the youth population was entering into the IT workforce, they were looking more for services that would run the infrastructure as code. So it's really a balance of these two things, constantly listening to customers. And I'm sure you'll see that, when you speak to anybody from the team, we ask you questions. We don't come and say, come and take the service from us. A lot of it is, what's the business problem you have? What's the outcome you want to get? Let's work backwards from that. One of the things that I've really seen in reality is, even if we've got a service that we feel meets a customer, if we think there's a gap, we're empowered as architects, as salespeople, to log in, create what we call a spec rec, where you can ask for a product to be tweaked so that it serves a customer better.
Thank you. I think innovation is key for companies to survive in this uncertain environment, to create new products and services, as you said, Amazon is doing. And also AI can really help in terms of accelerating innovation. Um, Anatoly, I have a different question which I want to bring to you, is around AI development, and how can governments influence and other stakeholders play their role in terms of development of AI. As we discussed, there are ethical angles to it, there are social dimensions to it. So how can we ensure that this is regulated and is at the right place? And what role can governments and other important stakeholders can play in the development of AI?
Thank you for the question. I think that as any new technology, it should be regulated, exactly as it was with blockchain, exactly as with if you hear me. And
I,
I think that
we
the
can hear you
government
now.
could,
I think we lost you in the
yeah,
middle. Now we
so
can hear you.
so so I think it should be regulated, and as any crime which is committed in regular life should be perceived as a crime in AI. And that's why I think that in advance the government should actually adjust their legislation and the regulation to the needs of AI. And I think that the industry, including AWS and others who are engaged, Microsoft, would be excited to actually to join efforts with the governments to try to actually first to explain to the government where this industry is going to. I think that the people who are sitting in the governmental agencies are much less educated or advanced technologically, and I think they need this assistance from technological companies. But definitely, it should be pre-regulated, and as any technology could be misused. But I think that the regulation should actually frame what is allowed and what is not allowed using the AI.
Yeah, so I think you feel that's a collective responsibility of the society. All of us need to come together, and AI is a reality. Is going to stay there. It's going to shape everything moving forward, and it's a collective responsibility that we all come together and ring fence AI in a way that it's used properly. And you also mentioned about how the regular crimes are punished, AI crimes should also be looked at that. So it leads to my next question, which I'm going to bring to JP. So one potential use case of AI is in the criminal justice, right? So what are some of the ethical concerns around using AI in that context, and how can we address those concerns, and how can we bring this AI into use in the criminal justice system?
But thank you. I think the um, topic of applying AI to criminal justice highlights some of the major challenges of AI. Criminal justice systems vary from country to country, and countries have different cultures. And so, with that, the data that the AI is trained upon for criminal justice should be from the country context. So it's actually applicable to the situations that their laws, their approaches to criminal justice, the culture that a country has. I think another challenge that AI in criminal justice highlights is this question of explainability. And so if the AI is being used for a certain person's circumstance, it should be explainable so that the person understands why a decision is being taken. I think some of the legislation worldwide related to explainability, where a person has an option to have a human instead of AI in the decision-making loop, is a really interesting way to go. I think the data question is important in criminal justice, but it's important in many other areas too, especially developing country contexts. So the context in some of the developing countries in Africa is much different than in the US or Pakistan or some European countries. And so the data sets should really be from there, from those types of economies, from that stage of development, from those types of cultures, in order to have AI that truly is trustworthy.
Yeah, I think the data question is really important. That if you want to trust on AI, you have to have good data in the system to use it to decision making. Talking about data, how can we balance the benefits of AI with the need to protect individual privacy and data security? So this is something which is already a concern. There has been a breach in data privacy recently as well in some of the AI tools. So Shaukat, what do you think around how can we ensure data privacy and security?
Yeah, this is a very very interesting question, because everybody is about talking about privacy and security, and many people are scared also about what is going to happen with their own data, and which is a valid question. And many governments, as you can see, they are implementing privacy laws, or they are at least exploring and doing these things. So I will just give you a couple of points on this one. So governments and institutions, companies, medium, large, any size companies should implement strong data protection laws and regulations to ensure that personal data is collected, processed, and stored in a secure and ethical manner. Institutions should use encryption, actually, and secure data storage methods to protect personal data from unauthorized access. Companies can also provide transparency and control to individuals over their personal data. For example, at AKU, we have Family Hifazat that enables all our users, with regards to their data, with regards to their phlebotomy or radiology tests, and with regards to their history, that gives them the control on how their data looks like. This includes informing individuals also about how their data is being used, and giving them the ability to control their data. Also, institutions should conduct regular security audits, which is very very important, to identify vulnerabilities and ensure that their systems are secure. Individuals should be educated, because this awareness is key here, because every single person should be aware of about their rights, about their data, and and I think a little bit about their process. Um, should be educated about data privacy and security, so that they can make informed decisions about sharing their personal data. And of course, it as it was mentioned, that it should be developed with ethical considerations in mind, including privacy and data security. This includes also ensuring the AI systems are transparent, explainable, and accountable. And I think the context of Pakistan, what is also important is that all our academic institutions, now is the time, companies, now is the time to put sufficient funding for research and development. And this concept of research and development should be actually taken seriously by the companies, and also by the academia, because the only way for getting our populations, our way of works and everything into the stream of the globalization is once we will be in that regime of research and development. So I think, yes, there are a lot of things governments should be doing, institutions should be doing, but then there are a lot of funding required to do that, and the decision makers needs to understand the importance of this part, actually.
Yeah, so you mentioned very important points that for adoption, Taruni mentioned a lot of learning. You mentioned a lot of research and development around it. That's the way forward for countries like ours, right? So um, I bring my next question to Taruni. As you know, AI continues to evolve. What do you think will be the most significant social impacts of AI over the next, like, say, I mean, I would say 10 years, but 10 years is a long time in technology. So between next 5 to 10 years, what do you think would be the most significant social impacts of AI, and how we prepare ourselves for that?
It's a tough question to answer. No one, 10 years, especially from a technology lens, is a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think the patterns that we're seeing is there's obviously going to be proliferation. We're going to see a lot more AI ML come into our regular life. If someone had told me in 2000 that when I walk home, I would say, Alexa, can you turn on the lights? I would have laughed. Why do I need a machine to turn on a switch for me? But that's so common. So I think we'll definitely start to see patterns of how human beings behave, how we interact, how we live changing as AI ML becomes more and more part of our life. And there's definitely social good there. I can think of driverless cars. I'm someone who can't drive, so I'm really looking forward to the day when driverless cars become something that's real. The way we educate, the way we learn. JP made a great point right in the beginning. He was talking about AI ML tools helping students write an essay. How do you fact check on grammar if a tool has helped to write an essay? These are questions that will need to be answered. And one of the points that's very, very critical and important for all of us, and we brought it up, is policy. How are governments, how are regulators going to manage this enormous petabytes xxx of data coming our way? How do we make sure there are guardrails so that AI is for good and it's not being used for cases where, social justice is a case that can go very wrong? But I'm a believer that technology has always helped us. Shaukat was talking about the internet age, the Google age. I go back even more in time, when factory line workers and assembly line workers were replaced by manufacturing, and machine came in. That didn't harm society. At the end of the day, society evolved. We embraced the change, and today we are where we are because those fundamental changes happen. It is a wait and watch. We will obviously have to see how these differences in how we live our lives will change. But I think from a workforce point of view, from somebody who works in tech, I'm definitely excited at that openness, the equity, the fact that we will have people in workforce, like I said, people who are disabled being able to serve in hospitality. That to me is something that touches my heart. Um, Looking forward to see what the future brings.
Yeah, I think some great points you made, and it's there. It's reality. We need to prepare ourselves towards it, try and adopt it, as you earlier mentioned. Try and learn as much as we can and as quickly as we can. Uh, so my next question, Anatoli, is around there are positive usage for AI, and there can be negative usage for AI. So many people are also worried about that AI will be used for malicious purposes, for example. So, what, in your opinion, are the steps, and how can we prevent AI from being used to harm people or groups of people?
Look, I think that we should revert to the previous question and answer. And you know that hackers already asked AI to code for them code that will be used to hack to break into some systems. I think it's the same. People should know that if they will misuse the technology, they'll be hunted and they'll be chased and they'll be arrested. And I think that the inevitability of punishment, that's something. But we just again, but we need to describe what is forbidden and what is and what is permitted. But again, as any other technology, it could be misused as knife, as whatever, as any other programming language, by the way, because previously hackers were using the regular programming languages, right? Now they're just asking AI to do it on their behalf. So I think that again, it should be, we should try to adjust it to our reality, and but we should also try to see how actually our norms and our values are not being changed because of new technologies that appears. But I don't think that we could do anything or embed something into AI that will prevent people from misusing the technology, unfortunately.
And thank you. So, JP, I'll bring the question, which the previous question which I asked Rooney around what do you think will be the impact in the coming years of AI, and also another question which I will add to that uh, is when Shaukat mentioned that while we are developing AI tools, there has to be accountability and transparency. So it is important that these aspects are considered while we are doing AI development. So, how can we ensure that the decision making processes and the algorithms used in AI are transparent and accountable? And also, I would like you to comment on the potential impacts of AI in coming years.
On the Accountability question. I think there's ultimately, I think it's leadership and governance and regulation. So there's a range of stakeholders. There's the developers of developing companies. There's the adopters, government and industry that are buying these types of systems in, and then there are regulators. And so I think looking at the AI through a risk management perspective, similar to how we do with cybersecurity, will play a big role in ensuring this accountability and transparency. There's great challenges, though. I think countries struggle with the regulation of software as a medical device. I mean, how to really review the software that is both has efficacy and safety. And there's the similar concerns are translating over to AI. In the U.S., for example, that the AI systems that have been approved for medicine are all locked systems with the data that they've been trained upon. And there's this question as to when the company needs to go back for a reapproval. And the Food and Drug Administration is looking at a way to both accredit the software developers as well as approve the specific product. And so I think there may well be some aspect of that with AI systems too down the road. Of course, it becomes challenging because there's import and export and how and cross-border jurisdictions. For the impact, I think it'll vary greatly by industry and by country. I think, as Shaukat mentioned, there's tremendous promise with some aspects of medicine.
Yeah.
There are great challenges too as to how to implement AI or any software within a hospital workflow. And then in other industries, I think it'll be less and more augmentative, perhaps. And then I think, as I mentioned earlier, it'll vary by countries that have aging society and need to really add to the workforce and maintain productivity, in contrast with countries that have a really quite young population.
Yeah. Shaukat, I have a question which is very close to my heart, and Teruni also already touched upon a little bit on that. Usage of AI and AI helping people with disabilities, right? So as the AI and language models become more widespread, what are some of the key challenges in ensuring that they are accessible to individuals with disabilities, and how can we, overcome these challenges? How can we help people with disabilities with using the AI algorithms and tools and languages?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question and very crucial one, because now we are talking about the application of each individual, right? So we don't need to forget about, I don't say disabilities, I would say people with special needs or additional needs, right? So there are challenges, but then there are a couple of submissions for developers, especially to think about it. For example, AI and language models require large amount of data to function effectively. However, the data may not always be available for individuals with disabilities, right? So it's a lack of training on that data, right? Another one could be that training data may also be biased towards certain groups based on the availability of the data, which can lead to inaccurate or discriminatory results for individuals with disabilities. Many AI and language models may not have built-in accessibility features such as text-to-speech or screen reader capabilities, which can make them difficult or impossible to use for individuals with certain disabilities, right? And then also the entire understanding of developers in this entire area. Maybe they don't understand the special needs or the additional needs of this segment of society, which are also very important, and then maybe they unintentionally miss some of those parts which needs to be included in their development. So then how to deal with this one? Of course, there are many other ways, but one way could be that the developers should strive to include diverse and representative data, as I mentioned earlier, in their training sets, including data for individuals with special needs. Developers should also actively work to identify and address a bias in their training data. So I think one of the options could be, the best option could be that they also need to engage people with special needs, when they apply this data, to see their feedback and response actually on how they are dealing with this one. They also need to prioritize the inclusion of accessibility features actually, which is very very important in their models, such as text to speech or screen reader capabilities, to ensure that individuals with special needs or disabilities can use them effectively. And then they can also consult with, as I mentioned earlier, they can also consult with this segment of society. There, of course, they are the special needs, but they are also very good on many other parts also, right? Just to inclusion of to make sure that they understand those special needs and then the expectations. So, by prioritizing accessibility in the development and implementation of artificial intelligence and language models, we can ensure that these technologies are accessible and beneficial for all individual, all segment of societies, which also includes the segment with the people with special needs. So I think these are some of the challenges, and maybe these are some of the things which I can suggest to consider. But there are many others also. And as I mentioned, that this is an area which is just developing. When I'm saying applying on each of us, AI is there for many years, but when we are talking about applications, we are all learning. So maybe there are many other features. Maybe in the development team, there are people with special needs who can tailor some of those areas which can cover their needs also. So those are some of my submissions.
Thank you for that. I think we're doing great on time. We only have 4 minutes left. I have one final question, which I'll bring to all of you. I think I'll start with Taruni, then Anatoly and Shaukat, and then JP can comment on it. It's around. I mean, JP has said that it's different for different countries, and it's you have to tailor solutions as per the needs of the society. So, what role do you think for international collaboration and cooperation is there to ensure that AI and the language models are developed and deployed in a manner that they are ethical, responsible, beneficial to the society, and also overcome potential barriers to such a collaboration? So, is there any room where we can internationally collaborate and help develop better models which can be more inclusive and which can help societies across the world? Taruni, starting from you.
Azar, I'll probably point to the fact that I think this is where the human part of this journey plays a very critical role. Across governments, regulators, policymakers, companies such as yourself, companies such as ours, there needs to be a coming together, a community of sorts that really looks at not just what we're doing within the country, but also looks at the international change that AIML can bring to the societies that we live in. There's a lot of responsibility that needs to be carved into what we do with tech. Shaukat spoke about ethics. We need to make sure that when you're training that model, it's really giving data that is accurate. The algorithms aren't being developed by bias, that there's diversity even within the developer scope, so that we have a balanced view of what the AI and ML models are learning from us. It'll ultimately boil down to visionary people who have that mandate, that responsibility, that drive really to make sure that this is technology that's being used for good.
Anatoly, your views?
Yeah, thank you for this. I think that it's a perfect opportunity for public-private partnership, not only between countries, poor and more wealthy and less wealthy, but also between corporations and the countries. And I think that now it's a unique chance to transfer knowledge to poor countries, to assist them to get integrated into the global supply chain, and to create equal opportunities for people from wealthy families, people from poor families, people from distant areas, and people from big cities. And that's actually what we should do. We should transfer knowledge. We should teach people to get integrated. We should teach people how to become part of the global supply chain. I think so.
Shaukat?
I think there are two aspects. I just want to start with how to prepare for this, right? For example, our school curriculum, like mathematics is an important one, physics, chemistry, these are important subjects for school. Now, AI should be part of this from the early age, from primary, secondary level. This should be part of. It's like like Python is like mathematics. AI is like physics. These are very important subjects, equal to mathematics, physics, chemistry. So this should be part of them to prepare our generations to first understand this one, right? And this understanding goes beyond students, right? The governments needs to understand what is this all about and how to utilize and benefit this one. And then the societies where we are living, for example, the companies where you and I work, and then the communities who we interact, I think it's important for them to understand. And then it comes to the global collaborations. Can you imagine today's this session that JP and Anatoly is from in US. I'm in Dar es Salaam. You are in London. Taruni is, I think, in Malaysia or somewhere
Singapore.
in completely
She's
different
in
places.
Singapore.
And then we are all Singapore. So we are all collaborating through this channel. And actually, JP, as a president of CIO Academy, there is opportunity for technology people like us to collaborate there and then maybe publish these ones. Anatoly works with the governments on a daily basis, right? He can play a role in building small setups. I'm not saying that we will be starting with a huge global institution, but whatever we can do, I think this is the right time. And just to, because a lot of maybe startups are also listening to us, this is a great opportunity for them. ChatGPT is just 4 or 5 months old, yeah. So the applications are way too high. So if you want to do something, here is an opportunity. Everybody is looking into these ones. Just get this opportunity, build this solution around that, and then you will be like you will have a great future. So I can see that. I think we just need to use our communities, our institutions, and then of course our international collaborations to learn from each other, to leverage from each other, and then we can together actually work for the humanity at large. And that's why my solution here.
Thank you, Shaukat. JP, your views?
I think Showkat had a wonderful closing, so I would just like to thank you, Azhar, for organizing. Thank Showkat for the kind invitation, and thank everyone for joining.
JP, one final thing which I would like you to comment on, as you are president of International Academy of CIO. We in Pakistan we also have an executive network where we have got together some of the CIOs of the industry, and we collaborate and we discuss topics of mutual interest, and then find solutions. And we meet every so often, and discuss our issues. I think I would suggest that we work with you and find out potential collaboration opportunities with the International Academy of CIO, with the Pakistan CIO Executive Network. What are your views on that?
Oh, I think that would be fantastic, and we've very much greatly appreciated our partnership with Showkat over the last 5 or so years, and it would be wonderful to build upon that.
Yeah, I think that would be great if we can explore possibilities of learning from each other. I thank all of you, Taruni, Anatoli, Shaukat, and JP, for giving time to discuss this interesting topic, and also thank CXO Global for arranging this. My last word is the tools are neither good or bad. It depends how they are designed and how we use them, and AI is also one of them. It's a potential and opportunity, is a great opportunity for all of us uh, to grow with AI and add to human intelligence with the help of AI, and do well in our societies and in companies. Thank you very much for joining today. Uh, Thank you for the audiences as well who has joined and listened to us. I hope this was good, and good learning opportunity for you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Azhar.
very much. Have a
Bye.
nice
Thank
day.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.